Hello there. Let me unmute. Hold on here. We're gonna unmute. Good morning. And let's turn on the camera. Yeah. How are we doing this morning?
We're good, thank you. How are you? We cannot see you yet, so hopefully you want to check your camera?
My camera's working fine.
I'm not able to see. Matt, can you see? Okay, now you're coming. I think the image is kind of blurry. Frozen.
And not moving.
Yeah, it's frozen.
Well, I've turned everything off here, so on my end it's moving fine.
Alright, yeah, you are frozen on our side, so we are not able to see what is going on. So do you want to retry? Kind of stop and rejoin?
Me?
Yeah.
Why have I got to rejoin? It's working fine here. I will try again. So, and we'll do this again. I'm going to reboot the computer. It's not my fault that it's freezing on your end. So somebody's got to shut stuff off on their end. So I've shut everything off. So I'll call you in like 2 minutes. Jesus Christ. Yep, folks, that they can't make a camera work. Apparently, County of Santa Clara can't do it, so gotta do this my way, They don't like it too bad. They just wasted time out of an interview. They're just good at wasting time. It's the County of Santa Clara. I guess they don't want people to have jobs, apparently, That's what it looks like from my end. Yep, they don't know what they do, apparently, so... You know?
Hello, Michael.
Yeah, and that was 5 minutes of my time, so are you going to give me the 5 minutes, and it's going to work this time?
Yeah, you have 45 minutes.
Okay, because it's not my fault that stuff on your end wasn't working.
Yeah. Well, it's working great now. Everything's working great.
So anyway, I'm going to start. My name is Behrooz Ghorbani. I'm going to be the lead interviewer for today's interview, accompanied with my two colleagues. we are delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you and evaluate your qualification for the Associate Project Engineer at County of Santa Clara, Department of Planning and Development. I'm a Senior Project Engineer with County, and here, we're trying to evaluate your experience and fit for the position, and we provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly outline the structure of this interview. We're going to have 9 questions, and then we assign typically 5 minutes on average for each question, for a total of 45 minutes max. And then if you have enough time, then you can ask any questions or address any concerns you might have.
Okay.
So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves, and we're going to start with questions.
Okay, well, I'm Matthew O'Brien. I'm one of the plan checkers at the County of Santa Clara Building Division. I work with Behrooz.
And my name is Matt McKenna. I'm the Senior Deputy Fire Marshal with the Santa Clara County Fire Department. Previously oversaw the County Fire Marshal's office, and now oversee the Land Development Work Group.
All right. Question number 1. The position of Associate Project Engineer requires a wide range of knowledge that includes, but is not limited to, structural engineering, fire and life safety, accessibility, floodplain management, energy and green building codes. Describe how your education and work experience make you the most qualified candidate for this position.
Okay, I have a structural engineer licenses in California and 3 other states. I have a master's degree in structural engineering. I'm doing continuing education in structural engineering. In addition to that, and I've got 27 years of experience as a structural engineer, so I'm an expert at all the building materials, steel, wood, concrete, masonry, all the gravity and the lateral systems, plywood, shear wall, your shear walls, whether they be wood, structural steel, plate, or concrete, or masonry, moment frames, whether they be steel or concrete. Let's see, some cross-laminated timber buildings, cross-laminated timber shear walls. Let's see, steel brace frames, steel moment frames, concrete moment frames, cantilever column systems. So I've been doing that for 27 years, 20 as a designer, 7 as a reviewer. So I've worked on the West Coast for a lot of municipalities, up and down from Seattle down to LA. I've got an ICC California Building Plans Examiner certification, so I can hit the ground running on that part of it, and, what else? So, and I've reviewed and designed all sorts of buildings. I'm going to say again, I reviewed and designed all sorts of buildings, whether it's apartments, office buildings, single family homes, custom homes, let's see, historic buildings like Stanford University, which is in your jurisdiction. Let's see. And I could keep going on and on and on, bridges, lots of other types of different structures. So that's how I feel my experience will fit in. The tallest building on record I've reviewed is 25 stories in elevation. The biggest building I've reviewed in plan is the size of an airport terminal.
Thank you.
Super, all right. The second question is, describe your knowledge of the overstrength factor, omega. Why is it used, and in what situations is it necessary to amplify the seismic loads?
Okay, omega is used when you have a discontinuous system and also any part of the collector system. For example, in a concrete shear wall system or a concrete moment frame system, your collectors would be the rebar that connects from the frame or the shear wall, and it has to go into the diaphragm to drag loads back. That's an example of where omega is used. The most common one here, is the wood buildings, which would be, for example, you have a wood shear wall that stops, let's say, on the second floor of a building, and then you got a beam holding it up. It could be steel, it could be wood. So the beam has to be designed for omega level forces, which means the amplified seismic forces, and it's there to, the overstrength factor is there to account for irregularities or, for seismic forces. Whether the force be discontinuous, if it's part of the discontinuous lateral system or if it's the collectors and the cords. And that's featured in Chapter 12 of ASC 716 of the Building Code.
All right. So the third question, a special steel moment frame building has been submitted for your review. When checking the moment frame system, what are some of the major design features that you would look for in a code-compliant design?
For a steel moment frame, I would look to see whether or not it's a complete system that's from the roof down to the basement, or into the sub-basement would be an example. I would be checking to see what type of gravity system it's attached to, whether it's a wood building or a concrete building, for example. For a steel moment frame, if it's special, it depends on what it is. Basically the weight of the building factors a little bit per chapter. I think it's 11 or 12, where it discusses where you can use, and also the seismic force level. The SDSs, the SSs, the SD1s, and the S1s to see whether you're allowed to use it. So I would also check to see if that specific system is allowed in the code in AISC. I think it's 341 has specific ones that are used. So I would check that. I would check the unbraced beam lengths to be sure that the beams are braced, but also the beam column connections are braced, and also being sure the brace can take the load, and also whether it's stiff enough. For the brace, it really depends on the system. If it's special, it's a dog bone. You've got to brace it at the column to beam connection, and also at the end of the dog bone section, but also along the beam if it can't take it per code. I would be checking the structural steel shapes to see if they're compliant. And when I say compliant, not only for strength but also deflection, and also to be sure they're compact. I would be checking the moment frame base connection, be sure that's designed for Omega, or whether it's plastic. I would be checking for strong beam, weak column. If it's a steel special moment frame only, not an ordinary. Ordinary only has to be designed for the connection has to be designed for the overstrength at the beam going into the column. And then I would be checking that frame for soft story, to be sure that there is no weak story mechanism in the frame system. And also the other thing that's really important is checking to see where it is on the plan, because you want to be sure it's taking the right amount of load depending on its location and or its stiffness relative to the other frames.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, question number 4 has 2 parts. Part A. What is an accessible means of egress? Provide 3 specific examples. I'll read part 2 as well. What is the difference between chapters 11A and 11B in the California Building Code?
Okay, 11A is public buildings, and 11B is private buildings. I'd have to look that up. And the accessible means of egress is basically a handicapped person can get in and out of the building without any trouble. That means things such as, the length of the path, if there's stairs in the building, whether there's a refuge area so that first responders can get to those people because they can't go down the stairs would be an example. Also, making sure they can open doors, to get out of the building, with certain pressures and things like that, and which way the door opens, whether it opens in and out. Usually it should open out. Also, the percentage of openings that are in the building, depending how big it is, basically. And also, I would be, part of the accessible system is basically the ability. It's consisted of, of an exit access, an exit, and exit discharge. So they have to be able to access the exit, then the exit has to be compliable. Then they have to be able to, get out, and that's using ramps and things like that are compliant, slopes and things like that. It allows them to get to the public way, which is the exit discharge.
Thank you.
You talk faster than I can write. All right. Number 5. Chapter 5 of the Building Code provides general requirements for allowable building height and area. What factors influence a building's allowable height and area?
Things such as whether the building is sprinklered or not, the building type, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Also the type of material, whether it's combustible, not combustible. Let's see, the footage around the building, whether it's the square, whether you have access to it or people can get to it, and first responders and things like that, because the bigger, the fire the bigger the distance around the building, the bit more apt you're going to be able to come up with a, bigger building, pretty much. And let's see, also there's things in the code, it depends also on the occupancy of the building as well. Your A's, E's, I's, and L's, which is California only, B's and M's and S's.
Alright, why are there limits in some cases and not in others?
That depends on the fire requirements of the building, and the probability of that happening with the building, I'd have to read my commentary on that,
Alright, thank you.
Okay, so the next question, I'll read it, and then there's a couple of examples that are part of the question. So, a customer has submitted a 2-story office tenant improvement project that will incorporate an open office concept where the design requires 2 exit stairs. As a plan checker, your code interpretation of the occupant load factor is more conservative than that assumed by the architect. Any occupant load greater than 500 will trigger an additional stair. So, how would you resolve this issue if your total occupant load that you calculate is 508? And then, same thing, how would you resolve this issue if the total occupant load count is 830 occupants?
Okay, 508. I'm a big interpreter of the code. If it's 508, if they really want it, they would have to put the second exit in. If not, I would tell the applicant that they've got to reduce the occupancy down below so they don't require another exit. So below the 500 threshold. So, for example, it could be 499. If it's 830, yes, they would have to put a stair in, and then also, they have to do all the requirements to be sure it's accessible, for that part only, but also being sure that the structure can handle all the loads, whether it's gravity or seismic, because you could be cutting an opening in the exit stair. That's anything that's pretty much been designed for it. The other thing too I would check is, any ordinance. I would check to see whether or not they have to fully upgrade the building or not. I haven't submitted in Santa Clara County, so I don't know. And then the fire marshal, checking for fire ratings and things like that. That's important as well. That's got to be done. Of course, I consult with the fire marshal to be sure I'm doing it right because, I want it to, that's a big deal to me anyway. They have the final say on that part of it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Question number 7. During an over-the-counter plan check, you determine that the collector is required. The engineer is at the counter with the owner and is having a difficult time producing the required calculation on the spot. The owner is anxious to obtain the permit. How would you handle the situation?
For me, I would find references and give those to them and show them what it is. I keep mine that have the basic concepts. For example, a lot of the structural engineering concepts, a lot of the books I have, those are neutral, resources. So they've got to do it. I would work with that person and tell them why they would need a collector, display why, put it on the paper and display why. I would use, I don't know if Santa Clara County has this, because I haven't been at the counter in a while. If they have a second screen, I would pull that reference out and allow the applicant to see it, basically. So what I'm seeing, he's seeing on the same screen. So, I would give some ideas on what to do, but ultimately it's the engineer of record that has to seal it, and they've got to put a calculation together. So they need to put that in there, or work with them to see what else can be used as a collector, it doesn't have to be the frame necessarily. What if you have an opening, in the way, and you still need it? And depending on where that is, it may be a cord as well, If it's at the edge of the building, it's probably, at the exterior of the building, it's probably going to need a cord as well. So they would have to check those forces. And then you got to check the diaphragm factor as well, because that's the minimum and maximum that the building has to go through.
Thank you. Super. All right. Question number 8. This position requires the ability to establish and maintain good working relationships with individuals encountered in the work setting and providing excellent customer care. 1. How do you maintain a productive and cooperative work environment with internal staff across divisions with various professional experience? 2. What does providing excellent customer care mean to you, considering that this is a regulatory position?
Can you repeat the first question? Because I got the second one with the excellent customer service. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Sure, let me just read the whole thing from the beginning.
That'll be good.
This position requires the ability to establish and maintain good working relationships with individuals encountered in the work setting and providing excellent customer care. 1. How do you maintain a productive and cooperative work environment with internal staff across divisions with various professional experience? 2. What does providing excellent customer care mean to you, considering that this is a regulatory position?
Okay, I'm going to start with the second part of this because that's the one part I can answer readily. The excellent customer service, for me, that's telling somebody, showing them what they can do and why they can do it. That means getting back to them as soon as possible, but also telling them that that's not going to happen. If I have like 10 things on my desk, that's really important to let them know. So part of it is, telling them what they can or can't do, answering the question, but telling them why they can't do it as well. And also excellent customer service to me is, if you don't know the answer or it's not in your purview, to ask someone that does. And that means, for example, if it's something that has to do with public works, direct them to the proper person. If it's somebody, or even if it's somebody with the right, different expertise in mind, I would direct them to that person. Because I believe good customer service is giving people the right information, being able to use it. The way I predict, so I'll go back to the first part of the question, maintaining productive, cooperative, work relationships. And I think part of it is you have to be, being a team player is really important. That means everybody looks out for each other, and that means, I'm not expecting, to know everything. That means if you see something suspicious, you say something and give, other members of the staff the ability to do it. Because the last thing you want to do is have somebody get a building permit and then all of a sudden the inspector sees something and then they have to tear it, the contractor owner is forced to tear that down, and that's not good. So, let me still think about the answer to that one, and we got 19 minutes. So, then to me, maintain the productive relationships. That means, calling things the way they are, being a resource, when people need you, and also making them feel included too. So if I don't know something, I'm going to, being productive is sending it to the person that can answer, or even delegating to someone that can or wants to do it. Obviously, if it's somebody that wants to do it and doesn't have the experience, I'm going to, help them out and mentor them. And that's my answer to that question.
Okay. So the next question is, what is an occasion that you served your customer or client in a difficult situation, and what were you proud of, and what would you have done differently? Okay.
One of the... repeat that again. I just want to get that right. So basically, it's, you had a difficult customer service relationship, and what you did about it, and what you would do differently. Generally, that's the question.
Yeah, so what were you proud of that you did in that particular situation that you could say, I was proud of something that I did. I provided a good customer service in some way. And then what would you also have done differently in that situation?
Okay.
If you were to redo it.
Okay, I think of a couple examples here. This is one where I provided a good customer service. This was many years ago in LA. I was designing a bunch of buildings, and I was finding out that people were not designing the wood buildings correctly. And I found out one of the reasons was because all the wood design information was in 3 or 4 different places. So I decided on my own to put the information, make it so that everybody can use it. And what happened as a result is that it cut down review time for people reviewing the structures in the office. Other cities got to use it. Another use that happened was the customers were able to design their building quicker because they had the same resources. It's easier to do it when you're using the same thing that you're, the information that's being used by the building department is used by the engineer of record. So... And I wouldn't change a thing about that one. Now, for a second issue where I had a difficult problem, that was a car dealership in the Seattle area I got to review, and the person that reviewed it missed a whole bunch of things. And I had to work with them and tell them, that that this has got to be fixed. And one of the things they missed was there was no lateral system on one side of the building where they put the nice glass curtain wall. So, I worked with that client, customer, trying to get that done, getting it correct. I made myself available so we could talk about it because it was a big deal for, it's a big money producer for the city where it was located. And what would I have done differently? I don't know, because this happened. The initial review happened before I got there. So if it were me, I would review it from the beginning. But you're stuck with a situation that you're dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Just give me a second here. All right. So that was the last question, and then basically the last item is if there is anything that you would like to share with us that was not covered by this question.
Well, the thing I want to share is I got plenty of experience reviewing all sorts of buildings, and I feel I'm the proper candidate. I'm the type of person that's just not going to put up with it when an applicant lies to my face. I'm very patient, but then when somebody, tries to pull the fast one on me, I'm the one that usually says, you can't do it. I'm very strict, but I try to be reasonable at the same time, and that's important because you want to ask questions because not everything's in the code. So I've got lots of experience, with stuff that's outside the code, like performance-based design, cross-laminated timber buildings, things like that. So, and I look forward to the next step. So I'm done with that part of it. So I've got questions for you guys about the position. Why is the position available?
Why is the position available?
Yes.
Because it hasn't been filled.
How long has it not been filled for?
I want to say a couple of years.
Okay, and you say you'll get back to everybody, correct? That always happens, correct?
I'm not sure about that part. I have to ask our HR.
Well, that's not true because you guys have interviewed me multiple times and never gotten back to me. You've had it open for 2 years. So, you've interviewed me multiple times. So, no response, nothing. So, you've had it open for 2 years. Something's got to give here. You either have a need for the position or you're using it to show people that you're looking, you're just saying the help's coming and it's not. And there's been cases recently where, I'll give you an example. A hospital is being sued because the nurses needed help and couldn't get it, and part of the cause of it was HR. So they're being sued right now. And they did the same tactic that you're doing with having the opening open for 2 years. I've interviewed with you guys multiple times, never heard back. And
I can have our HR to contact you because we don't get involved in that phase. Basically whoever is not selected, or I don't know the process, but that's something that our HR handles that. So I can have Rex to discuss that with you.
Yep. And you didn't, for the record, you didn't fill the position that you interviewed for last year. You had no new staff. Is that a true statement? Do you know of any new staff that you hired last year that went to work for you?
Well, there's Michael. Behrooz. We hired Michael.
For this position, yeah, it's been more than a year, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 1.5 years,
Yep. Because you didn't last year, so.
About a year and a half, yeah, we had one new hire.
Yep.
But we have had that open position for a few. Basically, it's been kind of. There are many factors to be considered, including county kind of budget and other stuff. So it's been always a challenge.
So basically, yeah. Do you have the budget for this position now? Yes or no?
If you're hiring, then yeah, we have budget.
That's not true at all, because if you said you were interviewing for 2 years, you had it open for 2 years, and I was interviewed last year and never got a response. That can't be true. Either you didn't hire or there's no position available.
We have position available. If you don't have position available, we're not going to waste our time and your time to the interview.
Well, you've done that before, so that's something I don't forget. So I'm checking into that, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Leave that up to you. You can ask that question from our HR. We are not involved in that case, so I don't think we're going to get to a good kind of conclusion on this discussion. So if you want, you can have that conversation with our HR.
Okay, what happens after this interview today?
We are going to look at all candidates, and then upper management is going to decide how to proceed and go to the next round or do not accept anyone. That's going to be the next.
Okay, what's your timeline for filling the position?
What is our timeline to fill the position? We would love to fill it as soon as possible, but I cannot give you a timeline.
You can't give a timeline. Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Behrooz Ghorbani, Matt McKenna, and Matthew O'Brien. Thank you.